Hi everyone, I hope you're alright. My name is Clara if you don't know me, and I'm the owner of the Ink Path, and today we are going to chat a little bit about a book that makes me really happy that it's been, and it still is, my favorite book since I was around 11 or 10, and we are going to talk about Little Women by Louisa M Alcott. First of all, before I actually jump into the review, I want to chat a little bit about the situation that is going on. I'm going to be very brief because I have been bombarded with the news. As probably a lot of you know, I'm a Spanish speaker person. I live in Spain, but this is a bilingual channel where you can actually see videos in English like this one or in Spanish. And as I live in Spain, you probably know already about the coronavirus thing. We are in confinement at home. We are being quarantined ourselves because of our health and the others' health as well. So please, I recommend you to stay at home to avoid getting sick and contagion the rest of the other people around you. Please stay at home and stay safe. As I said before, today we're going to talk about Little Women. This story is very important to me because it's the first one where I read about the idea of being a writer. Before that, I have started short story that I never finished and all, but it's the first time I actually wrote from a female point of view about the writing process and the goal of being a published author. Having said that, this goes beyond that. This is the story of four sisters, the March sisters, who at the middle of the American Civil War, they have to stay at home in Concord, Massachusetts. And when the story starts, we learned that they, as a family, they used to have a really not very rich income, but they were quite solid. They had a quite solid economy. However, because of unexplained reasons, they are not in that position anymore. So when the father goes to the war, the girls have to manage with the things that they have, and with her mother as well. So because of her lower situation at the moment, lower economy situation at the moment, two of them work. Meg, who is the eldest, works as a tutor for one family, or I think there were more than one family, but for several families in the city. And then Joe works assisting her elder aunt, who is very rich and who she keeps company doing reading and all that stuff. Beth, who is one of the youngest, she is very shy, so she stays at home and helps the person who acts as a servant to deal with the house and everything, and then she studies from home too. And Amy is the youngest of them all, and she is the only one who at the beginning of the story goes to school. This story follows these young girls from, at the beginning of the story, Meg has 17 if I'm not wrong, and Amy has like 11, so they are followed through 4 years of their lives or so. So they are followed since the state of war to the post-war situation. And this story follows up the growing into adulthood experience of the four sisters. And to me, as I said before, it's a very important book. But it's a very important book because first, it's the first book, in my opinion, or at least the first one I read, that explore the female world, showing four types of personalities within this world. So if we are going to follow a sisters group in a period of time where women were expected to marry well and to be the mistresses of their houses and learn how to be mothers, we are shown here different kind of women who maybe they don't want that. So Meg is the eldest and is the more traditional woman in the group of sisters, in which she knows that she has this kind of predominant role of being the good wife, and she's okay with that. She wants love and she wants a family, and everything is perfect, and in the meantime she will get it. That's great. But also we have Jo, who is more boyish than the rest of the sisters, that has this kind of feeling of not belonging, of loving books too much and being too clever and being always looked down by the male around her area of society. So she doesn't want to be married. She doesn't need that. She wants to travel the world and be published and be a known author, and that's very important because she breaks the mold that she's supposed to be fitted in. And also we have Beth, who doesn't think much about the future. She loves being around her family and her sisters and her little house. And Amy is the youngest of them all, and therefore she has more kind of childish ideas, but also knows the value of money and the way she is perceived as a female. So at the beginning of the novel, her goal is to marry well and marry a wealthy partner who has the income enough so she can paint, which is her passion. The funny thing about these four sisters, or what I consider it to be very, very interesting, is that these four sisters' motives are valid. And they are not against each other. They are sisters, and they may actually bicker a little bit. There are some kind of tense chapters, but the value of being sisters and support one another goes beyond any kind of momentary argue. And I love that kind of sisterhood that is maintained, the sorority of the book itself, even though this book was very close to its age, so it has other values that maybe are not so relevant now. For example, the idea of the idea of being a good Christian and a good woman in the traditional sense of the word. As I said before, it's very present, but also very well tested. Not only by Jo, but by the rest of the sisters too at some points in the novel. I also love how different the growing experience is for all of them, and how all of them learn through their own growing experiences, but also through the others. So looking back now, I have read this book around 20 times or more. So looking back now, I feel like, even though I empathize more with Jo because she is the most advanced of the four sisters, she's the most modern, taking into account where and when this book was written. She is the more closer to me and to us as readers because of the kind of feminist and modern ideas that are closer to the 21st century than when it was written. But I feel like, for example, Amy, through seeing so much things throughout her life, from the beginning of the story to the end, and also through experiencing the growing up of her sisters, she learns that maybe her childish dreams at the beginning of the novel don't clash so much with what she is expected to be when she grows up. However, she doesn't shy away from criticizing society or male behavior when she has to. I also love how precise the language is. I feel like Louisa M Alcott, I know that she was inspired by her sisters to create the March Sisters, but I love how precise the storytelling is in terms of describing the society and the kind of family life routine and stuff. I say this because I believe this is the first costumerism book that I read. You are seeing the society through the March Sisters. You are seeing the American society during the war and post-war eras through a different set of eyes that belong to a same line of family line. So I feel like, for me, having the perspective, even if there were some times in which I didn't share that kind of feelings and habits and costumes because they are not my own, they are not what we do in the 21st century, I felt like I was learning so much from experiences and I don't know, etiquettes from that time period, and yet they were so relevant because they were touching the same issues we are touching now. The idea of being equal to men, the idea of having the respect and recognition of the, I don't know, sphere of choice. I'm thinking about the writing community and how Jo needs to, I mean, she wants to be a writer and she wants to be a published author, but she's also doing it for monetary reasons. She needs to help her mom. They don't have that big income anymore, so she's good at writing stories, so she wants to provide the family with money, and having all that rejections just because she's a woman and not even being considered a proper author or being like looked down to. No, you have to write this kind of romantic, pompous things instead of fantastical or horror things. It's quite interesting to see how that kind of misogynistic aspect of the novel is still happening now in certain levels and certain situations that may not be the same, but the feeling is the same. I found myself the last time I read it, because between last year and this year I read it or listened to it in better state. I listened to it in audio dramatizations, and let me see that versions of the story. Let me see an aspect that I haven't thought about it before. When we explore the children part of the novel, the more younger years, which is officially what is called Little Women, but then we jump into the adulthood or the transition into adulthood, which in the separated version of the story, it's what is called Good Wives. in later versions or more modern versions of the book, both Little Women and its sequels, and its sequel, Good Wives, it's actually joined, so it's how you know Little Women now. So looking into Good Wives, looking into the second half of Little Women, that part that goes into the otherhood of the girls, I explore and I felt really seen when Jo explores the loneliness that she feels, because in that area of the book other kind of more mature elements are discussed. They are I don't know, being married is discussed, the value of marriage and children and family, but also the value of what happens with those that end up alone. What happens when people grow up and you feel distant from them? You feel like they are going on with their lives, and then you are still there. You are still stuck in a position where maybe you don't want to be. You want to be loved and respected, and you don't want to leave any of your independence behind, which was something that a lot of women used to do back then. When you married and you have your husband and you have to, be the woman of your house. And I remember a certain part of the story in which Jo feels so lonely and so unhappy and so frustrated, because life sometimes is not rainbows and all of that. Sometimes it's hard, and it doesn't have to have sense to understand why it's so hard. But these 2 years I have found myself more connected to Jo even than I was when I was growing up or when I was a child. And I was more connected with Jo because I felt that kind of dissatisfaction with life and with what you wanted or you thought you wanted and you didn't get, and the things that you were supposed to be, and also with the things that maybe you didn't want to be back when you thought about it, but now you may want something similar just because you feel so lonely. I don't know, the idea of loneliness hit very hard on me this time, and I feel like it's very interesting how it is perceived and treated and perceived so many years down the line, so many years in the future, and it still hurts, and it still feels like you could read it in a 21st century novel. I don't know, I feel like the way Louisa M Alcott, who never married in real life, managed to explore the importance of women and the women's world, and how the perspective changed within the years, but also how dangerous is to feel isolated, which is something that I relate a lot at the moment. When you are supposed to fill certain roles and you feel like they are not your call or that you are not doing it properly, I don't know, it's really interesting. I feel like the other part of Little Women, it's more close to me at the moment than 5 years ago or 3 years ago. I love it. Funny enough, I would like to say that the ending of Little Women regarding Jo's happiness was not what the author thought. She wanted to make Jo single throughout the whole novel. However, her editors and her readers asked her to give her a love interest, and she managed to create someone who I understand why is not so well loved, but I love how, in my opinion, she managed to create a person who is equally intelligent and he respects her as such, but he also tests her a lot in the sense that he doesn't give her all the reason if you don't argument me why you feel like this or you want to write off of that. I don't know, I love Professor Bear and I think it's not so well perceived as he should, in my opinion. Well, I hope you enjoy my review. I'm sorry if it's a little over the place, but I feel like it's a classic that it shouldn't be always prescribed to women. I think it's a classic about understanding women as as women and also as male. I think it's important. It's an important book because it shows a reality that was very, very poorly explored before, and it's important because it's still relevant. What the March sisters go through, all of them, is still going on with maybe different clothing and phones and all, but I feel like if right now in the 21st century you can relate to Joe or you can relate to Amy, it's because some things are still needing from a change. Some still need to be still critical, and that's why this last version of Little Women, the film, is so important, because some things need to be said and one time and twice and over again until people understand women are as equal as men, and that's the main reason I believe Louisa M Alcott wrote Little Women, to show the readers, the young readers, that they don't have to be content with what society makes them. They are equal to men, and therefore they have to go for what they want, and they have to demand respect from the others. Well, I hope you enjoyed my review and that you stay with me for one more week. Next week I will try to do something else, something a little bit different, and I hope you enjoy it. Bye!